Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, Texas on the road playing Georgia. I don't think the college football landscape recognizes how important of a football game this is, the magnitude of this game. And I don't mean just because we got two blue bloods going head to head here. I look at this game as a springboard for whoever wins this game because I'm saying this, both of these teams have national championship caliber firepower. Ain't no question about that. But both of these teams haven't necessarily resembled national championship caliber teams just yet. Whoever wins that game, is that the fuse, is that the springboard that these teams need to kind of catapult themselves into that national championship run? It feels like on Saturday night, it's an opportunity for both of these football teams to grab that momentum when you need that momentum the most. I think both of these coaches recognize, look, it's fun to play good football in September. Don't really matter. Hey, Kirby Smart and Georgia are the best examples. We've seen Georgia sleepwalk at times through the regular season, not look like the most impressive team, but when it comes November, December, they become a different version. Either of these teams can take that form after this football game. That's why I think this matchup is so big. Now, what makes this football game such a blast to sit down and watch is we got NFL talent all over the place. And I think this game is going to come down to matchups. I think there are certain matchups that favor Texas from a personnel standpoint, and I think there are certain matchups that favor Georgia from a standpoint. Want to get into those matchups, kind of talk about some of the biggest matchups, the things that both of these teams need to do to win this football game. Before we get into it, as always, Georgia fans, Texas fans, let it fly in the comments section. We a ton of support, by the way, for the preview and prediction episode that we did Sunday night. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, let's start with, arguably the biggest question, and that is, what quarterback are you riding with more, Arch Manning, Gunnar Stockton? To me, in terms of what we've seen so far in 2025, I think that answer is pretty damn obvious, and that's Gunnar Stockton. And that's not saying Arch Manning cannot wake up, but we haven't really seen a ton of information or data that points to Arch Manning's going to be the better quarterback in this matchup. Now, there are a couple of things that I think separate Gunnar Stockton in this quarterback battle. Number one, look, I ain't got numbers. Well, I do have some numbers to kind of back this up, but it's the it factor. When things are not perfect, what quarterback do we trust more to thrive in the chaos? I think that's pretty clearly Gunnar Stockton. I mean, he's got a better pressure to sack percentage ratio, which means, hey, when he's under pressure, he gets himself out of trouble more than Arch Manning does. I think that's meaningful in this football game because you look at how this game's going to go and the firepower that we see from both of these teams on defense. It ain't going to be perfect. You ain't going to have a ton of clean pockets to work from. What quarterback is better suited to thrive in that chaos? So far, Gunnar Stockton has shown that ability more than Arch Manning, and that might be the most important thing to watch for in this game. What quarterback do you trust to take care of the football more? I think that answer also leans Gunnar Stockton. How about this one? Big time throw percentage. Both of these quarterbacks have the same big time throw percentage. Now, I think there's this narrative that Arch Manning has that higher caliber arm. And although that might be true, we have to start giving some more credit to Gunnar Stockton in terms of what he does as a thrower of the football. I think many Texas fans probably agree with this too. I think you favor Gunnar Stockton in this football game over Arch Manning. Now, here's the second big storyline. That is this Texas offensive line versus this Georgia defensive line. When we've seen Arch Manning struggle the most, I'm not going to say it's been all the offensive line, but it's been a fair share of this offensive line struggling. Now, the big bugaboo in this matchup, and really the big bugaboo for this Georgia team in general, is they haven't done a very good job impacting the quarterback. I look at Texas's offensive line and say, we're not running the football particularly well. 3.9 yards per carry, that's 88th in the country. I don't think that gets better in this game because Georgia's very, very good stopping the run. But I look at Texas on the offensive line and pass protection, 6% sacks, 6% of dropbacks. Arch Manning is taking sacks. That is 74th in the country. But I look at Georgia's defensive line and say they're only sacking the quarterback 3% of dropbacks. That is 120th in the country. We don't think Texas can go on the road and run the football the way they probably want to run it, which means they're going to be dropping back and throwing the football a decent amount. Does Georgia have the firepower, the pass rush capability to impact Arch Manning? It might be the biggest storyline in this football game because up until this point, you haven't seen enough from Georgia on that defensive line. That being said, there's a little bit of an X factor here. Georgia's linebackers getting involved in the pass rush. I firmly believe when Georgia is at their best on defense so far in 2025, you're seeing them ask Raylan Wilson, ask CJ Allen to get more involved as pass rushers. I think Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart recognize, hey, we don't have those first round NFL draft pick dudes on the defensive line like we've had the last 5 years. We got to find that pass rush production from other aspects of our defense. Hey, we got 2 NFL dudes at the linebacker spot that can both rip it up as pass rushers. We're going to use them. I think the other storyline here is Texas kind of making some changes on the offensive line. I'll say this, that the changes that they made going into Vanderbilt, that to me was the best version of the Texas offensive line we've seen all year. Do we get a repeat performance on the road against Georgia? What if Texas has fixed their offensive line struggles, got the right 5-man rotation, and sometimes that's all it is? That's a reason to be optimistic if you're a Texas fan. The other big storyline here is the Georgia run game versus this Texas front seven and how elite they are stopping the run. Look, Georgia wants to run the football. There is no question mark about that. And the reason I might be buying some stock in Georgia is you've seen that run game really come alive. And it's been 2 reasons. Number one, Nate Frazier, man, seemingly woke up against Mississippi State. I mean, Nate Frazier against Mississippi State looked like one of the best running backs in the country. But I think the other reason is, hey, this Georgia offensive line is finally healthy, and they are imposing their will on opposing defenses. This will be the test because you look at Texas and say they're only giving up, 2.4 yards per carry. That is number 2 in the country. I mean, this is an elite front seven. Texas needed to replace some defensive linemen. Boy, did they hit with Hero Kanu. Hero Kanu's been exceptional, especially against the run. The biggest question I think a lot of Georgia fans have, it's really 2-pronged. It's number one, how efficient, how effective can we run the football? And if we struggle to run the football against a really good Texas front seven, can Gunnar Stockton throw us to a win? I think there's a very good chance Gunnar Stockton can, but we haven't seen Georgia ask Gunnar Stockton and ask this offense to be one-dimensional. If they have to be a little bit more one-dimensional, lean on the passing attack, can Gunnar Stockton get it done? That is certainly a question mark. Now, the last storyline for me, man, and it's just straight Jimmy's and Joe's. You got a stud in Ryan Wingo. You got a stud in Zachariah Branch. It's been very clear. I mean, Ryan Wingo has 61 targets on the year. The next closest is DeAndre Moore at 34. You say the same thing for Zachariah Branch. Zachariah Branch, 63 targets on the year. The next closest is Colby Young, who's out with injury with 29. They ain't no secret where these passing attacks run through. The biggest question here is what difference maker on the outside comes up with the plays to go help their team win games. I mean, I don't see this being a shootout game by any means. I think this is going to be a little bit more reliant on can you find 1 or 2 game-changing explosives. Well, those game-changing explosives are most likely coming from either Ryan Wingo or Zachariah Branch. What offensive play caller does a better job dialing it up? And what playmaker makes those plays? It's a simple conversation, but I think it's going to make the difference in this football game. It is good on good in a lot of different situations. This is one of the best rushing attacks you see in Georgia versus one of the best run-stopping defenses in the country. Who wins that battle? That's a storyline. Which quarterback plays better in this game? That's a storyline. Can Texas go on the road and block Georgia up, or can that Georgia pass rush finally come alive and impact Arch Manning? That's a storyline. Really, really fun game. We'll break it down Saturday night. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.